Okay, writers, so today we're going to talk a little bit about our story and having a strong beginning. If you'll remember from our last session, we filled out a graphic organizer with some key details about our beginning, middle, and end. So we want to use this to talk about the beginning of our story. And writers, when they write personal narratives, they have kind of a trick. That trick is that when they start their beginning, they usually describe the setting. You'll probably remember our story, The Leaving Morning, that we've been talking about. At the beginning, you'll notice that the author talked about what it looked like outside. She said it was misty and it felt cold, and she could hear the sound of the street cleaners. So she talked about what she heard and what she saw to give us an idea of the setting to set up the beginning of her story. Now I'm going to show you guys what I wrote to start at the beginning of my personal narrative, my little short story. I wrote, "It was a cold, dark morning when I arrived at Moose Elementary. The sun was still down, and I could hear cars whooshing down California Avenue." So notice, when I say it was a cold, dark morning, I'm describing the way it looked outside. I tell you where I was at Moose Elementary. I talk about the sun still being down, again, how it looked outside. And when I talk about what I heard, I talked about being on California Avenue where cars are whooshing. I heard the sound of cars. That's how I set up the beginning of my story. Now, before you begin writing your story, I just want to remind you guys of a couple of things. So, when starting a strong story, we don't want to start it with, "First I woke up." We know that you woke up if you're telling a story about your day. Or "one time I went to," or "one time I... We know that this is one time in your life because you're telling this one story. As strong writers, we want to have a little bit more creative of a beginning. So just remember, a setting is where your story takes place, and you can describe to the reader the setting of your story by talking about what you heard or saw.